The war was lost, or so everyone believed. The cold, silent void of space stretched endlessly around the battered human ship, Resolute. It was the last of its kind, a lone survivor from a fleet that had been shattered in a brutal war against an alien armada. Captain Rhea stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the countless enemy vessels, encircling them like a swarm of predatory insects. Every ship in the alien fleet gleamed cold and mechanical, their weapons locked and ready to strike at the first sign of resistance. The Resolute's hull was scarred from decades of battle. Panels flickered with warning lights. Systems failed one by one, each failure a reminder that the ship was fighting a losing battle. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, the captain's voice remained steady. Surrender was not an option. Not for her, not for the crew, and not for humanity. The crew moved quietly but with purpose. Engineers patched what they could. The medics tended to those injured in recent skirmishes. Each man and woman knew their roles, understanding that this might be their final stand. But they clung to something more than hope, a stubborn determination that refused to be crushed by despair. Rhea's mind raced through the possibilities. They were surrounded by hundreds of alien warships, each more advanced than the last. Their weapons outranged human technology by light years. The enemy believed victory was inevitable. They had no idea what the Resolute carried deep within its core, a secret weapon born from desperation and human ingenuity. For weeks, scientists had worked in secret to prepare the ship's final gambit, a self-destruct sequence unlike any other. It was not designed merely to destroy the Resolute, but to trigger a catastrophic explosion powerful enough to engulf a significant portion of the enemy fleet. If successful, it could cripple the armada, buying time for the remaining human colonies to prepare defenses. The red glow of the self-destruct countdown was a silent reminder of their fate. Once activated, there was no turning back. The seconds would tick down mercilessly until the Resolute was nothing but a brilliant, fiery beacon in the blackness of space. But before that moment, they would make the enemy pay a price too high to ignore. Rhea glanced at her crew. Faces illuminated by the harsh glow of the consoles showed fear, yes, but also fierce resolve. Every individual was ready to sacrifice everything for the chance to save humanity's future. She found strength in their courage and vowed to lead them to the very end. Suddenly, the enemy fleet shifted formation, closing in faster than expected. Communications were jammed. No calls for surrender came from their side, only the cold certainty of annihilation. The Resolute shuddered as the first enemy laser struck the hull. The sound was muted in space, but the impact sent a tremor through the ship's frame. "Brace for impact," Rhea ordered calmly. She activated the secret weapon. The countdown began. 10 minutes. 9. 8. With each passing second, the tension mounted. The alien vessels tightened their grip, unaware that the humans were about to ignite a storm they could not contain. The crew held their breath, hearts pounding in unison with the ticking timer. Rhea made one final transmission, her voice steady and clear, sent out as a beacon for all who might hear. "We do not surrender. We fight not because we expect to win, but because the spirit of humanity will never be broken." Around her, the crew prepared for what was to come. The Resolute was more than a ship. It was a symbol of defiance, a testament to the unyielding will of a species refusing to fade quietly into the night. As the enemy closed in, the Resolute surged forward, the countdown glowing ominously on every console. The moment was near when one final act of courage would reshape the fate of the war and echo across the stars for generations to come. The Resolute shuddered as it pushed deeper into enemy territory. The hum of failing systems filled the corridors, but the crew moved with unwavering focus. Captain Rhea stood firm on the bridge, her eyes locked on the swirling mass of alien ships closing in around them. Each vessel was a towering behemoth, bristling with weapons far more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. Yet, the humans aboard the Resolute held their ground, not out of hope for victory, but out of a deep, unyielding resolve. "Damage report," Rhea commanded. Her voice was calm but edged with urgency. Lieutenant Harris, the ship's chief engineer, appeared on the comm panel. "Hull integrity at 65%, Captain. Power fluctuations in the aft shield generators. We're holding, but not for long." Rhea nodded, her mind already racing through possible options. They were a sitting target, battered and alone. Every moment counted. "Can we maintain course to the central cluster?" she asked. "Yes, but the engines are pushing beyond recommended limits," Harris replied. "If we push harder, we risk total engine failure before the countdown ends." Rhea weighed the risk carefully. Retreat was impossible. The enemy had them boxed in. Their only chance was to strike at the heart of the alien formation and trigger the chain reaction their scientists had so painstakingly engineered. "Then we push forward," she said firmly. "Full throttle to the central cluster. The sooner we get there, the better our chances." The crew braced themselves as the ship lurched forward, engines roaring against the void. Outside the viewport, the alien vessels swarmed like deadly fireflies, their formations tight and precise. The enemy fleet's confidence was palpable. They saw the Resolute as nothing more than the last flicker of a dying star. In the ship's quiet corners, the crew grappled with their own fears. Medic Lee moved steadily between stations, checking on injured personnel. His calm presence was a balm amid the growing tension. He understood the stakes were higher than any medical protocol. The survival of humanity depended on their resolve. Meanwhile, the science officer, Dr. Amara Patel, monitored the self-destruct system. The countdown glowed ominously on her console. She had helped design the weapon. An explosive force meant not only to obliterate the Resolute, but to rip apart hundreds of enemy ships in a single, devastating blast. "It's more than a bomb," she explained to Rhea earlier. "It's a chain reaction. Once triggered, the energy will cascade through nearby ships, causing their reactors to overload and implode. We could cripple the entire fleet if the blast radius holds." Rhea had held onto that hope tightly. Now, as the seconds slipped away, she saw that hope reflected in her crew's eyes. They understood the price, and they were willing to pay it. Suddenly, alarms blared. Harris's voice came over the intercom, tense and clipped. "Incoming missiles. Impact in 30 seconds." Outside, the enemy launched a volley of deadly projectiles, streaking toward the Resolute like fiery comets. The ship's failing shields flared weakly, absorbing the first hits. Explosions rippled across the hull, shaking the ship violently. "Hold steady," Rhea commanded. "Deploy countermeasures." The crew worked swiftly, launching decoys and flares into space. A few missiles veered off, detonating harmlessly. But others found their mark, ripping through the hull and sending debris floating into the void. The bridge crew gritted their teeth as the ship lurched under the assault. Power flickered, lights dimmed, and vital systems began shutting down one by one. Still, Rhea refused to yield. "How much time left on the countdown?" she demanded. 6 minutes and counting, Patel replied. Her fingers danced across the controls, adjusting the energy flow to the self-destruct core. The Resolute was a fortress of fragile hope, inching closer to the moment when it would become a blazing beacon of defiance. Rhea looked out at the alien fleet, their ships closing the trap with ruthless precision. Yet even surrounded, the humans on board felt something stronger than fear, a fierce pride. They were the last line of defense for a species that refused to be erased. "Prepare for impact," she said quietly. "This is our last stand." Every member of the crew readied themselves. The ship surged forward into the swirling mass of enemy vessels, a solitary beacon burning bright against the darkness. The countdown ticked on. Time was running out. But humanity's spirit was far from extinguished. The red digits glowed ominously across every console in the Resolute. 7 minutes remained on the self-destruct countdown. The hum of the ship's core grew louder, a constant reminder that their final act was rapidly approaching. Captain Rhea stood at the helm, eyes locked on the swirling enemy armada ahead. Every vessel was an enemy, hundreds of them, and soon many would be no more. Inside the engineering bay, Lieutenant Harris worked feverishly to keep the failing systems from shutting down completely. Power surges threatened to cripple the ship at any moment. The self-destruct device was drawing energy from every reserve they had. The strain was immense, but the entire crew understood this sacrifice was necessary. "Core stability is holding at 70%, Harris reported over the comm. "But if we don't detonate soon, the entire system might collapse prematurely." Rhea's jaw tightened. Timing was everything. Trigger too early, and the blast might not reach enough enemy ships. Too late, and the Resolute would be dead in the water, unable to deliver the final blow. Across the ship, Dr. Amara Patel monitored the intricate network of explosive charges embedded within the hull. The weapon was unlike anything designed before, a controlled chain reaction set to spread through the reactors of nearby enemy vessels. Each ship within range would be turned into a blazing inferno. But the reaction depended on proximity and timing. It was a delicate balance of destruction and precision. The alien fleet tightened their formation, sensing the humans' desperation. Their commanders had no idea that within the battered Resolute lay the means to destroy hundreds of their ships. To them, it was just one more human ship, a relic doomed to die. On the bridge, the tension was palpable. Crew members exchanged glances filled with both fear and determination. Each person knew that this was more than a battle. It was a message, a declaration that humanity refused to be wiped out quietly. Suddenly, the ship's sensors picked up an incoming swarm of alien interceptors. Faster, more agile fighters that darted through space like deadly hornets. The crew braced for another assault. "Defensive turrets online," ordered Rhea. The ship shuddered as the automated cannons sprang to life, cutting through waves of enemy fighters. Explosions erupted beyond the hull as some were destroyed, but many still closed in relentlessly. The countdown continued. 5 minutes and counting. Rhea's voice was steady, but inside, her heart pounded. She remembered the faces of every crew member, their courage, their sacrifices. She owed it to them to make this final moment count. "Engineering report," she called. "Power is diverting to the core charges," Harris answered. "Self-destruct system is fully engaged." On the main screen, the countdown shifted to 4 minutes. The Resolute was now a ticking time bomb in the vast emptiness of space. Outside, the enemy fleet prepared to close in for the kill. Their warships shone cold and merciless, confident that the end was near. Then, a sudden jolt rocked the ship. A missile struck the port side, igniting a small fire near the reactor. The alarms blared through the corridors, but the crew responded quickly, containing the damage before it could spread. "We're still holding," Harris confirmed, wiping sweat from his brow. "But the clock is our only friend now." Rhea stared out at the encroaching enemy ships. Their numbers were staggering, but the Resolute was prepared to take them down with it. "Prepare to engage the final maneuver," she ordered. The ship's engines roared, pushing the battered vessel faster toward the thickest cluster of enemy warships. The countdown hit 3 minutes. The crew braced for the inevitable. The ship was their home, their sanctuary, and now their weapon. Rhea's mind was clear. This was not surrender. This was a declaration that humanity would fight to its last breath. The explosion they were about to unleash would be remembered long after the stars went dark. 2 minutes and counting. The Resolute closed in. The enemy ships, caught off guard by the ship's audacity, scrambled to adjust their formations. But it was too late. The countdown continued relentlessly. 1 minute, 30 seconds. The tension in the ship was almost unbearable. Then, in those final moments, Captain Rhea spoke softly into the comm channel, her voice carrying the weight of hope and defiance for humanity. For every world that stands against the darkness, we do not surrender. And with that, the Resolute became a blazing comet, hurtling toward destiny, and a future forged in fire. The enemy fleet's confidence was unshaken as the battered Resolute surged forward, its engines screaming defiance against the void. Alien commanders watched through cold, precise instruments, convinced the human ship was a final futile flicker, a dying ember to be crushed without ceremony. Their warships, sleek and lethal, formed a perfect grid, surrounding the Resolute like a steel cage. But the humans inside were ready to shatter that cage with a force no one expected. On the bridge, Captain Rhea's eyes narrowed as she studied the enemy's formation. Every move was calculated, every vessel poised to strike simultaneously. The alien fleet believed themselves invincible, their numbers overwhelming. Yet they underestimated the human spirit, the raw determination that burned brighter than any weapon. "Brace for impact," Rhea ordered. The ship's hull groaned under the strain as the Resolute accelerated, breaking through the outer perimeter of enemy ships. Outside the viewport, smaller interceptors swarmed like angry hornets, lasers slicing through space in deadly arcs. The Resolute's automated turrets flared to life, ripping through the attackers with precision fire. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers in the darkness. The crew fought with grim resolve. Each shot fired a desperate plea to survive. Yet they knew the real battle was yet to come, the moment when the Resolute would become a blazing spear thrust into the heart of the alien fleet. The countdown ticked down relentlessly. 30 seconds. In the engineering bay, Lieutenant Harris monitored the energy flow feeding the self-destruct charges. The ship vibrated with raw power, a beast awakening from its slumber. The secret weapon was ready to detonate, an inferno designed not just to end the Resolute, but to tear through enemy ships with chain reactions that would spread like wildfire. Outside, the alien warships scrambled, their commanders realizing too late that this human ship was not surrendering. Missiles launched in desperation, arcing through space toward the Resolute. The battered shields flared weakly, but held against the assault. The crew worked frantically, deploying countermeasures that bought precious seconds. "Captain," Lieutenant Vega called from weapons control. "The enemy fleet is breaking formation. They're retreating, at least for now." Rhea's breath caught. The explosion was near. The enemy had no choice but to scatter or risk annihilation. Her heart hammered. This was their moment. The Resolute plunged deeper into the cluster, engines straining as the countdown hit 15 seconds. Every crew member gripped their station, faces pale but determined. They were the last beacon of human resistance, a tiny ship against an entire armada. 10 seconds. The ship's core flared, an ominous glow spreading beneath the hull. Energy rippled through the charges embedded in every bulkhead, every system, primed to release a devastating pulse. 5 seconds. Time slowed, the silence of space filling the bridge. The enemy ships, once poised and confident, now scattered in panic. their perfect lines shattered as ships veered to avoid the impending blast. 3, 2, 1. A blinding explosion tore through the void. The Resolute became a supernova of destruction, a radiant firestorm engulfing the surrounding enemy vessels. The shockwave rippled outward, tearing apart metal and machinery, igniting reactors, and sending ships into cascading destruction. Fires bloomed on enemy hulls, weapon systems erupted in flames, and the alien armada reeled in chaos. Hundreds of ships were caught in the fiery maelstrom, their once impenetrable formation now shattered beyond repair. On the bridge, the crew watched in awe and sorrow as their final act of defiance turned the tide. The Resolute was gone, consumed by its own sacrifice. But its legacy was etched in the stars, 300 enemy vessels dragged down with it. Captain Ria's voice echoed in the ship's last transmission, carried across the void to all who would listen. We do not surrender. We fight for every star, every world, every soul. Remember us. And though the Resolute was no more, its fiery sacrifice ignited hope throughout the scattered human colonies. Against all odds, humanity's spirit burned brighter than ever, a defiant beacon in the endless night. The aftermath of the Resolute's final blaze was a silence so profound it seemed to echo through the stars themselves. Captain Ria's voice, broadcast in the ship's last transmission, still lingered in the minds of those who heard it, a declaration of defiance, a testament to human courage. Far from the battlefield, scattered colonies and listening stations received the message, a spark lighting hope in hearts that had long known despair. Across the remaining human territories, the news spread swiftly. The legend of the last human ship that refused to surrender and took 300 enemy vessels with it became more than a tale. It became a rallying cry, a symbol of resistance in the darkest hour. On the outskirts of the war-torn systems, Admiral Cade stood on the bridge of the flagship Valiant Dawn, staring at the star charts that marked the devastation. The alien armada had suffered a crippling blow. Hundreds of their warships lay in ruins, drifting like wreckage in space. The perfect order they had relied on was broken. Enemy formations are in disarray, his tactical officer reported. Their communication networks are down. They're struggling to regroup. Cade's eyes narrowed. This is our chance. Prepare the fleet for immediate counterattack. We cannot let humanity recover. But among his officers, a flicker of doubt had begun to grow. The humans, though battered, were not defeated. The fiery sacrifice of the Resolute had shown a spirit no weapon could extinguish. Meanwhile, on a remote human colony orbiting a blue star, Commander Alara read the intercepted transmissions with a heavy heart and rising determination. Her people had lived in fear for decades, hiding behind makeshift defenses as alien war machines swept through the stars. Now, the message from the Resolute rekindled a fire within her, a call to arms. We cannot wait any longer, she told her council. The time has come to fight back. For our homes, for our future. Preparations began immediately. Shipyards that had been dormant sprang to life, engineers working day and night to repair and retrofit vessels. Scientists pushed forward with new technologies inspired by the self-destruct weapon that had devastated the alien fleet. The sacrifices of the Resolute had not been in vain. They had given humanity time to regroup and evolve. Back in the depths of space, the shattered alien armada struggled to maintain control. Their commanders faced difficult decisions. Some urged retreat to lick their wounds, while others demanded ruthless retaliation. In a secret war council, the alien high command debated fiercely. The humans have struck a blow we cannot ignore, said one voice, sharp and cold. They are more dangerous than we believed. But our numbers are vast, another countered. We will crush them eventually. We always do. Yet even among the aliens, the legend of the Resolute began to inspire fear, a fear of an enemy that would not yield, no matter the odds. On the frontier, small human resistance groups took heart from a story. Scattered pilots and soldiers began organizing into coordinated forces, sharing intelligence and tactics. The stubborn resilience of one ship had transformed into a movement that crossed systems. Deep within the rubble of a destroyed human outpost, a young engineer named Marcus whispered the words he had heard countless times since the attack: "We do not surrender." He clenched his fists, feeling the weight of those words settle in his bones. The legacy of the Resolute was more than history. It was a promise. Humanity would endure. Humanity would fight. And humanity would rise. Far from the war zones, in quiet corners of the galaxy, families and communities listened to broadcasts recounting the last human ship's final stand. The story was told and retold, a beacon of hope that bridged the distance between planets and stars. The Resolute was gone, but its spirit was alive, etched into every heartbeat, every whispered prayer, every vow to continue the fight. Because in the vast expanse of the cosmos, where darkness seemed endless, humanity had found its light. It was a light born from sacrifice, courage, and the unbreakable will to survive. And so, the war was far from over. But the tide had turned. The last human ship had refused to surrender, and with it, humanity's future was reborn. Hope pulsed through the veins of every human colony, reigniting a fire long thought extinguished. News of the Resolute's sacrifice spread like wildfire, fueling a collective resolve that transcended fear and despair. The war, once seen as a foregone conclusion, had shifted. Humanity was no longer on the brink of extinction. It was preparing to strike back. Commander Alara's fleet, hastily rebuilt but filled with renewed determination, prepared to venture into enemy-controlled space. The engineers had incorporated lessons learned from the Resolute's final weapon, a desperate innovation that turned annihilation into a weapon of hope. New ships carried upgraded shielding, faster engines, and experimental weapons designed to disrupt enemy formations rather than destroy outright. Ilara, her second-in-command, said as they reviewed the battle plans, "The alien fleet is fractured. Their communication lines are down in several sectors. We can exploit this." Ilara's eyes gleamed with determination. "We won't just survive. We will reclaim what was taken." The Resolute showed us that no matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes. Across the void, alien warlords gathered in fractured alliances, struggling to contain the chaos that the Resolute had unleashed. Their meticulously ordered fleet was now a scattered force, with pockets of resistance and retreat. On a distant bridge, a young alien commander, unfamiliar with the legends of human resilience, stared at the reports coming in. "They fight like cornered beasts," she murmured, "and their courage frightens even the strongest." Back in human space, underground networks of resistance fighters coordinated strikes against enemy supply lines. Small teams sabotaged war factories and disrupted communications, turning the tide on multiple fronts. Marcus, the young engineer who once whispered the words, "We do not surrender," found himself at the heart of one such operation. Alongside a ragtag crew, he piloted a nimble fighter through debris fields and asteroid belts, evading patrols to deliver vital data to the human command. Each mission was a thread woven into the larger tapestry of resistance, small acts that, together, unraveled the aliens' grip on the galaxy. Meanwhile, scientists studied fragments of the Resolute's technology recovered from the battlefield. The self-destruct mechanism, a blend of controlled nuclear reactions and exotic energy fields, offered a blueprint for new weapons. tools not just of destruction, but of tactical brilliance. Humanity's sacrifice wasn't in vain, Dr. Patel had said before her disappearance. It gave us time to innovate, to fight smarter, not just harder. And fight smarter they did. As months passed, human fleets grew stronger and more coordinated. The once defeated species began to reclaim lost worlds, pushing the enemy back inch by inch. The war became a dance of strategy and grit, where every battle was a testament to human will. Captain Rhea's legacy lived on, a beacon guiding every pilot, soldier, and engineer who looked up at the stars and vowed to carry the fight forward. In secret, plans were laid for a decisive strike, an operation that could turn the war entirely. A fleet, born from hope and sacrifice, would launch toward the enemy's heart, armed with weapons inspired by the Resolute's final stand. The galaxy held its breath. Because even in the darkest corners, even against impossible odds, humanity's spirit blazed fiercely. The last human ship's refusal to surrender was more than a moment in history. It was the spark that ignited a revolution. And the revolution had only just begun. The tension was palpable as the newly forged human fleet gathered in the shadow of a distant star. This was no longer a ragtag assembly of battered ships, but a formidable force, sleek vessels bristling with new technology, each carrying the weight of humanity's hopes and the memory of the Resolute's sacrifice. Commander Alara stood on the bridge of the flagship Valiant Dawn, her gaze fixed on the holographic star map displaying the heart of enemy territory. This mission was their chance to strike a decisive blow, to turn the tide and reclaim what was stolen. Final systems check, Alara ordered. Her voice was steady, but beneath it lay the electric charge of anticipation. We move at dawn. This operation will define the future of humanity. The crew responded with a focused energy born from months of relentless preparation. Engineers fine-tuned the experimental weapons. Tacticians reviewed assault strategies, and pilots ran simulations designed to exploit every weakness in the alien fleet's fractured defenses. The lessons of the past battles were ingrained in every protocol, every maneuver. Meanwhile, deep within enemy space, chaos reigned. The alien armada was still recovering from the devastation caused by the Resolute. Their commanders scrambled to rebuild, but mistrust and fear simmered beneath their ranks. The legend of the human ship's final stand had spread even among them, an unsettling reminder that the enemy was not as easily crushed as once believed. A transmission intercepted by human intelligence officers revealed cracks within the alien high command. Some factions called for aggressive retaliation. Others urged caution and consolidation. Their internal discord was a weakness humanity could exploit. As the Valiant Dawn and its fleet crossed into enemy territory, the vastness of space seemed to stretch endlessly before them. Every sensor scan, every communication channel was monitored with meticulous care. They were entering a deadly labyrinth, where one wrong move could mean annihilation. The first skirmishes began with swift, brutal exchanges. Alien fighters launched ambushes from asteroid fields and cloaked vessels, testing the humans' defenses. But the human fleet was ready, maneuvering with precision, countering with devastating firepower drawn from months of innovation. Alara watched as her pilots danced through the chaos, their skills honed by countless hours in simulators and real combat. She remembered the stories of Captain Rhea, of the Resolute's final charge, and found strength in their legacy. Suddenly, a transmission crackled over the comm, an urgent alert. Enemy flagship detected ahead, larger and more heavily armed than previously expected. Alara's heart pounded. This was the heart of the alien power, the symbol of their dominance. Destroying it would cripple the enemy's command structure and possibly end the war. "Prepare for full assault," she commanded. "This is our moment." The fleet surged forward, lasers and missiles blazing through the void. The alien flagship responded with a fury unmatched. Shielding pulsed. Weapons unleashed torrents of energy. Explosions lit up the darkness as ships on both sides fought with desperate intensity. Amidst the battle, Alara led a squadron on a daring assault run, weaving through enemy fire to breach the flagship's defenses. Her fighter shook violently as hits scored against the hull, but she pressed on, guided by the determination to honor the Resolute's sacrifice. Inside the flagship, alien commanders scrambled to contain the breach. They had underestimated humanity's resolve and the fierce ingenuity of those who refused to surrender. Alara's squadron penetrated the core of the flagship, launching a synchronized strike at its power reactors. The resulting chain reaction sent shockwaves through the enemy vessel, tearing it apart from within. As the flagship exploded in a cataclysm of fire and debris, the alien fleet faltered. The psychological blow was immense. Hope, once thought lost, now ignited fiercely in human hearts. The battle was far from over, but this victory was a turning point. Humanity had proven it could stand against the darkness, fight back, and win. Commander Alara looked out at the stars, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. The Resolute's legacy was no longer a memory. It was a living force driving humanity forward. "We do not surrender," she whispered. And this time, the universe listened. The shockwave from the shattered alien flagship rippled through the battlefield, sending fragments of metal and fire streaking across space. The once impenetrable alien armada reeled, their formations breaking apart as panic spread like wildfire. Commander Alara's fleet seized the moment, pressing the advantage with precision strikes that dismantled enemy defenses and crippled command ships. The tide of a war had finally turned. Back on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn, Alara allowed herself a brief moment of quiet triumph. Her crew worked tirelessly, their faces etched with exhaustion, but alight with determination. They had not only survived, they had struck a decisive blow that would echo across the galaxy. As the fleet regrouped, a transmission came through from the human colonies, a message of hope and renewal. Rebuilding efforts were underway, new alliances forged, and once forgotten worlds reaching out to stand united against the alien threat. The sacrifice of the Resolute and the courage of those who followed had inspired a galaxy-wide resurgence of humanity's spirit. But Alara knew this victory was just the beginning. The enemy was wounded, not broken. Pockets of resistance remained scattered throughout the stars, and the war would continue until freedom was secured. She looked out at the vast expanse of space, the stars shining like distant promises. Humanity's path was still uncertain, fraught with peril and sacrifice. Yet in the darkness, a new light burned, born from courage, resilience, and an unyielding will. Captain Ria's final words echoed in her mind, "We do not surrender." Those words had become a creed, a beacon guiding humanity through the storm. The Valiant Dawn and its fleet set course for the next mission, ready to carry the fight forward. Each ship carried the legacy of the last human ship that refused to surrender, a legacy written in fire and steel, forged in the hearts of those who dared to stand against overwhelming odds. Across the galaxy, in quiet moments under alien suns, families whispered the story of the Resolute. Children grew up knowing the price of freedom, inspired by heroes who had chosen courage over capitulation. The war was far from over, but humanity had found its strength. They were no longer just survivors. They were warriors, united by a cause greater than themselves. And in the endless expanse of space, their story would endure, a testament to the last human ship's defiance, and the undying spirit of a species that refused to surrender.